It all started with a turkey sandwich. Anna Grant had just finished her shift at the Veterans Clinic cafeteria. She tucked her hair under her cap, clocked out, and stepped into the back alley for a few moments of quiet before catching her bus home. That's when she saw him. A man, probably in his 60s, slumped near the dumpster with eyes that had seen too much. He wasn't begging. He wasn't even looking up. Just sitting there, back against the wall, like the world had given up on him, and maybe he had too. Something in Anna's chest tightened. She looked down at the sandwich she had saved from her break, untouched, still warm, wrapped in foil. Without a second thought, she walked over and crouched beside him. "Hey," she said gently. "Are you hungry?" He looked up slowly, his gray beard tangled, hands trembling. I don't want trouble." "You're not getting any," she smiled. "Just lunch." She handed him the sandwich. He hesitated, then took it like someone accepting a sacred gift. "Thank you," he whispered. "God bless you." Anna watched him eat. She didn't ask questions. She just made sure he was warm enough, pointed out the nearest shelter, and told him she'd try to bring a coffee next time. But she didn't get the chance. The next morning, her manager, Mr. Lasker, summoned her into his office. A man whose tie was always too tight and smile never reached his eyes. "I reviewed the security footage," he said, folding his hands. "You gave clinic property to a vagrant. That's against our policy." Anna blinked. "He was hungry." "I didn't think." "That's right. You didn't think," he snapped. "This is a government-run facility. We have procedures, liability, expectations. You are not authorized to distribute food outside the clinic." Anna opened her mouth to argue, but he wasn't done. "You're getting a formal reprimand," he continued, sliding a piece of paper across the desk. "And a $250 deduction from your paycheck. Consider yourself lucky I'm not suspending you." She stared at the paper. It didn't feel real. "Sir, he's a veteran. I saw the tattoo on his arm. Marine Corps. Isn't this a clinic for them?" "That doesn't matter," Lasker said coldly. "He wasn't registered. No ID, no record. You don't know who he was." But she did. She knew enough. Anna signed the form with trembling hands and left the office with her head high and heart aching. That night, she posted about it online, not angrily, not for sympathy. Just the truth. A story of a hungry man, a sandwich, and a punishment that didn't sit right. She didn't expect much. Maybe a few friends would comment, maybe someone would argue policy. She went to bed feeling small, wondering if kindness had become a liability. But the internet had other plans. By morning, Anna's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Dozens of notifications flooded in. Friends. Strangers. Veterans. People she'd never met were resharing her post with words like "This is wrong," "She did the right thing," and "Where's our humanity?" She didn't think much of it, until it hit national pages. Someone had taken a screenshot and posted it to a military support group on Facebook. From there, it went viral. Thousands of veterans commented, many of them outraged. Some knew exactly what tattoo she described, the faded eagle and anchor on the homeless man's arm. Others shared their own stories of being discarded, ignored, forgotten. The hashtag "she fed him" started trending. Anna tried to ignore it as she went into work that day, walking the same hallway, feeling eyes on her. A few coworkers gave her quiet thumbs up. Others avoided her altogether. Mr. Lasker, though, wasn't quiet. He stopped her just outside the kitchen, his mouth set in a tight line. "You brought attention we didn't need," he hissed. "I told the truth," she replied evenly. "I didn't say anything that wasn't factual." He glared. "If this spirals, the clinic could be audited. Shut down. And you will not be protected." She stared back, steady now. Then maybe something needs to change. But deep down, she was nervous. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She hadn't fed that man for recognition or protest. She'd just done what she thought any decent person should do. Around noon, she stepped out front for her break and froze. A black SUV pulled up. Then another. Then a third. They didn't look like patients. One by one, uniformed Marines began stepping out, some young, some older, some with medals, some with visible scars. Boots hit the pavement in perfect rhythm. 10. Then 20. Then 50. Anna blinked, speechless, as they lined up in front of the clinic. By the time she counted 100, her legs felt weak. They weren't chanting. They weren't shouting. They just stood silently, tall, proud, in a clean line that stretched across the entire block. Each one held a small sign with 2 simple words. We remember. A few held old photos of brothers in arms. Others held pictures of the man she had fed. Turns out, his name was Sergeant Mitchell Rowe, Vietnam veteran, long presumed lost to PTSD and life on the streets. One of the Marines broke formation and stepped forward. He was in his late 40s, tall and sharp-eyed. His chest bore ribbons and scars that spoke volumes. You must be Anna, he said, extending a hand. She nodded slowly, shaking his hand. Yes. I'm Master Gunnery Sergeant Cole Ramirez. Sergeant Rowe saved my life in Fallujah. Twice. We owe him, and we owe you. I didn't do anything, she whispered. You fed a brother, he said gently. That's everything. The crowd of Marines stood in absolute silence for an entire hour. Traffic stopped. Reporters showed up. People filmed with their phones, not quite believing what they were seeing. Inside the building, Mr. Lasker watched from his office window, his expression unreadable. Anna stood among the soldiers, tears threatening, but not falling. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew she wasn't alone. The line of Marines didn't move. Not for a minute. Not for an hour. They stood like a living wall of respect, facing the clinic, back straight, hands at their sides. Passers-by slowed to watch. Some stood with hands on their hearts. Others began clapping softly. Inside the building, it was chaos. Phones rang off the hook. Staff peered through the blinds. Patients stood in the waiting area, murmuring. No one knew exactly what to say. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't loud. But it spoke louder than any bullhorn ever could. Mr. Lasker burst into the hallway, red in the face. Get her, he barked. Where is Grant? Where's Anna Grant? She was already walking in. I'm right here, she said calmly, standing tall. He marched toward her, clipboard shaking in his hand. You need to make a statement. Tell them to leave. This is disrupting operations. This could get us shut down. They're not doing anything wrong, she said. They're making a spectacle. No, sir, she said quietly. They're making a point. He lowered his voice to a growl. You want to be a hero? You want to embarrass this facility? Anna met his eyes, no fear left in her. I want to treat people like human beings. That's all I did. Before he could respond, a voice cut through the hallway. Excuse me, said a man in a black jacket, flashing a badge. Agent Howard, Department of Veterans Affairs. Lasker blinked. You're with the VA? Yes, sir. We received multiple reports of mishandling of a veteran. We're here to investigate. Lasker turned pale. Anna felt her breath catch. She hadn't expected this. Agent Howard continued, his tone neutral but firm. We'd like to review all incident reports, security footage, and communications related to the reprimand issued to Miss Grant and to Sergeant Rowe's presence on the premises. Lasker sputtered, This is a misunderstanding. Then I'm sure you'll be happy to clarify. Within an hour, the VA officials set up in the conference room. Anna gave her statement. So did 2 nurses, a janitor, and even one of the cooks who had seen the man in the alley. Each one told the same thing: Anna had acted with compassion. No rules had been posted. No protocol had been violated. Only one thing had been broken, someone's image of what kindness was supposed to look like. Outside, the Marines still stood. The crowd had doubled. News vans rolled in. A local station went live on the scene. Social media exploded. Anna's phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Ms. Grant," came a deep voice. "This is Brigadier General Malcolm Reed. I just wanted to personally thank you." She nearly dropped the phone. "Sir? I served with Sergeant Rowe in '78. He was a hero. If not for you, I might never have known he was still out there. You reminded us what brotherhood means." Her throat tightened. "I only gave him a sandwich." "You gave him dignity," the general said. "And now, we're going to give it back to him." She hung up, heart pounding. Outside, the formation broke. The Marines didn't leave, but they moved as one, now circling a small clearing in front of the building. A chair was placed in the center. Then, slowly, from the side of the crowd, someone walked forward. A man with a limp. Beard trimmed. Jacket on. Sergeant Mitchell Rowe. Mitchell Rowe leaned on his cane, scanning the sea of uniforms arrayed before him. For a heartbeat the city noise vanished, replaced by the memory of Hugh 67 and the metallic scent of gun oil. He drew a breath, straightened as far as his battered spine allowed, and saluted. 100 Marines snapped to attention, palms slicing the air in perfect unison. The crack of their salute rang like a rifle volley and rippled through the crowd. Cars stopped. Reporters lowered their microphones. Even Mr. Lasker, peering from the doorway, went rigid. Rowe dropped his hand and turned to Anna. "Ma'am," he said, voice rough but steady, "permission to speak?" She managed a nod. He pivoted back to the waiting formation. "Name's Sergeant Mitchell Rowe, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines." His words carried, surprisingly strong. 49 years ago, I walked off the tarmac at El Toro and faded into the noise. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't work. So I drifted. Lost my brothers, lost my house, lost my mind. He tapped the side of his head. Yesterday, this young lady saw me before I disappeared for good. Fed me. Called me sir. Reminded me I'm still worth something. A murmur rolled through the spectators. Rowe's fingers worried the brim of a faded boonie hat. "This clinic," he glanced at the facade, "turned me away once because I couldn't remember my social security number. Figure that was fair, lot of stuff I can't remember." His eyes hardened. "But kindness? Kindness I don't forget." He lifted the sandwich wrapper he'd saved, now clean and pressed between plastic sheets. "Evidence," he said, showing it like a medal. Laughter fluttered at the edges of tears. Master Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez stepped up beside him. "Sarge, we've arranged transport to the VA Center in Quantico. Psychiatric care, housing, back pay review. You good with that?" Rowe swallowed. "Yeah. I'm good with that." He faced Anna again. "But not before I thank the one who pulled the pin on all this." He reached into his pocket and brought out a small, sun-bleached insignia, the eagle, globe, and anchor cut from his old utilities. "I was saving this for someone who earned it." Gently, he pressed it into Anna's palm. Her breath hitched. "I can't." "You already did." He closed her fingers over it. A roar of applause surged. Reporters surged too, but the Marines closed ranks, forming a corridor that shielded Rowe as paramedics escorted him to a waiting van. Before the doors shut, he gave a final thumbs up. Cameras caught it, the image would flash across every evening newscast within hours. Inside the clinic, Agent Howard's audit moved quickly. Policy manuals were piled, emails printed, personnel interviewed. By late afternoon he emerged with a clipboard and an order. "Mr. Lasker," he announced for all to hear, "effective immediately, you are placed on administrative leave pending review of misconduct and failure to accommodate an at-risk veteran." Shock drained the blood from Lasker's face. He tried to speak, but Agent Howard had already turned away. Anna stood nearby, still clutching the insignia, unsure whether to cheer or cry. Nurses hugged her. Patients shook her hand. Strangers called her angel and sister. Yet beneath the praise she felt raw disbelief, this all because of a sandwich. Ramirez approached. "The line's not breaking until we see you home safe," he said softly. "Orders are orders." She laughed through tears. "Yes, Master Gunnery Sergeant." Dusk settled. Streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows of helmets and boots. But the line held, silent, steady, a testament carved in living stone, until the last bus rumbled up, and Anna, still blinking in awe, climbed aboard under a canopy of raised hands. The bus dropped Anna 2 blocks from her apartment, but she never walked alone. Ramirez and 3 Marines flanked her like an honor guard, boots clicking in rhythm. Neighbors peered through curtains, some stepped outside to clap. It felt surreal, celebrated for an act she once thought too small to mention. That night she couldn't sleep. The living room glowed blue with news reports. Sandwich sparks national outcry. Homeless vet reunited with brothers. Commentators debated policy, dignity, and the price of a turkey sandwich. Hashtag we remember climbed to the top of every platform. By dawn, a petition demanding reforms in veteran outreach had amassed 800,000 signatures. Anna's inbox overflowed with job offers, thank you letters, even marriage proposals tucked between gifs of saluting bulldogs. But another email slipped in, colder than the rest. From Lasker and Holcomb, LLP. Subject: cease and desist, defamation and loss of revenue. The letter accused Anna of maliciously damaging the clinic's reputation and warned of immediate legal action unless she retracted her statements. Her stomach knotted. One line screamed from the page, "You will be held personally liable." Moments later, her phone rang. Unknown number again. "Anna, it's General Reed," the gravelly voice said. "We saw the letter. Do not answer it alone. The Corps has lawyers, good ones, already on your side." She exhaled shakily. "Thank you, sir. Sergeant Rowe asked me to tell you he finished his first full meal at the Quantico Center. He says the mashed potatoes were terrible but freedom never tasted so good." Laughter leaked through her fear. "Tell him I expect a full Yelp review." At the clinic, Agent Howard uncovered a trove of internal emails. Lasker had ordered staff not to engage with unregistered transients to keep operating costs low and statistics tidy. One memo read, "Any outside food distribution must cease, optics matter before audit season." Howard compiled the evidence, forwarded it to the VA Inspector General, and quietly copied the press. Lasker's suspension morphed into a summons, a public VA hearing set for Friday. Anna was called as a key witness. The thought of testifying under oath, cameras glaring, tightened her throat, but Ramirez's text hit her screen. "We stand until you can. CR." She looked outside. Across the street, 2 Marines already leaned against a Humvee, sipping coffee as if on casual guard duty. Friday came in a storm of flashbulbs. The VA auditorium overflowed, veterans in dress blues, nurses in scrubs, teenagers waving cardboard hearts. Reporters jostled, microphones bristling like porcupine quills. Anna stepped from a government sedan, legal pad clutched in sweating hands. A roar rose from the crowd, Marines snapped to parade rest. She paused at the foot of the marble steps, heart hammering so loud she felt the vibration in her ribs. Ramirez appeared beside her, offering a crisp salute. "Ready, ma'am?" She swallowed. "Ready." Together they climbed toward the double doors, past rows of soldiers and civilians united by a single, stubborn truth: kindness owed no apology. Inside, the gavel would fall, questions would fly, and reputations would collide. Outside, 100 Marines waited, prepared to line up again if the world still didn't listen. Anna squared her shoulders, stepped into the chamber's hush, and the doors closed behind her with a resonant boom. The hearing room was silent when Anna entered. Long mahogany tables stretched beneath fluorescent lights. At the far end sat the review panel, 3 stern-faced officials from the Department of Veterans Affairs, flanked by legal clerks and advisors. Cameras lined the back wall, blinking red. In the front row sat Master Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez, arms folded, eyes locked on her. His presence steadied her. Across from Anna sat Mr. Lasker, palms flat, jaw tight, lawyer whispering in his ear. The lead panelist cleared her throat. "Miss Grant, you may proceed with your statement." Anna stepped to the microphone. Her knees shook, but her voice didn't. "I work in food services at the West Ridge Veterans Clinic," she began. 3 days ago, I gave my uneaten lunch to a homeless man outside the building. He was alone, cold, and hungry. I later learned he was a decorated Marine named Sergeant Mitchell Rowe. She paused. For that act, I was fined. I was told I violated policy. But I believe no policy should punish compassion. Especially not at a place meant to serve those who served us. Soft murmurs filled the room. Anna continued, her voice firm now. I didn't share my story to go viral. I shared it because it felt wrong. Because I didn't want to stay silent and let someone be forgotten again. Lasker's lawyer stood. Objection. Miss Grant's motives are speculative and irrelevant. They're not irrelevant, said one panelist sharply. She's here because she refused to be silent when others did. The panel proceeded to questioning. Calm. Precise. Anna answered each one with honesty and restraint. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't accuse. Then it was Lasker's turn. He stood reluctantly, sweat glistening under his collar. We have protocols for a reason, he said. We can't just feed every stranger who shows up. Liability, budgets, reputational risk, this isn't a soup kitchen. And yet, a panelist interrupted, your clinic exists to serve those who risk their lives for this country. Lasker stammered. We never confirmed Sergeant Rowe's identity. He wasn't in the system. Is that because you didn't check? The panelist asked. Or because you didn't care? The silence afterward was louder than any answer. Then came a surprise. Agent Howard approached the panel with new documents, service records, medical history, and photographic ID. As of this morning, Sergeant Mitchell Rowe is officially reinstated in the VA system. He has been awarded back pay and immediate access to treatment. He is no longer homeless. A collective gasp filled the room. And, Howard added, eyes scanning the press, he's waiting outside if you'd like to hear from him. A moment later, Sergeant Rowe entered, wearing a clean Marine Corps jacket and walking without his cane. The entire room stood. He approached the mic and said just 4 words. Anna Grant saved me. Then he turned, looked at the panel, and saluted. They returned the gesture. The lead panelist turned to Anna. Miss Grant, on behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs and the United States government, we thank you for reminding us of our duty. Your record will reflect not a reprimand, but a commendation. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. And Mr. Lasker, the panelist said coolly, your employment at the West Ridge Clinic is hereby terminated. You are barred from future federal service pending review. Lasker stood speechless, red-faced, as security gently escorted him from the room. Outside, the Marines stood in perfect formation. As Anna stepped through the doors, one by one, they began clapping. Slow. Proud. Thunderous. She didn't wave. She just smiled through tears, and placed Sergeant Rowe's insignia gently over her heart. It didn't end with applause. It began there. The moment Anna stepped out into the sunlight, surrounded by saluting Marines and tearful civilians, it became clear, this was bigger than a sandwich. Bigger than a reprimand. Bigger than one clinic or one girl. It was a ripple. By sunset, the story had reached the evening news in all 50 states. A week later, it aired internationally. Veterans clinics across the country reported calls, donations, and walk-ins from citizens asking, what do you need? Cafeterias opened new programs, hot meal, no questions became a new national pilot. Local governments reviewed their procedures. One by one, red tape was cut with scissors named Anna Grant. And Anna? She didn't return to the cafeteria. The director of the VA personally offered her a new role, Special Outreach Coordinator. She'd now be responsible for connecting with homeless and displaced veterans, helping them re-enter the system. The work was hard. Some days she came home exhausted, shoes dusty from long walks under city bridges, or parks where invisible soldiers lived. But she never once questioned why she did it. Not when Sergeant Rowe showed up on her birthday with a bouquet of white daisies and a slice of cherry pie. Not when a former Marine named Victor finally opened up after 6 years without speaking and whispered, "You believed in me first." Not when a young volunteer, no older than 20, asked her, "How did it all start?" She always smiled and said the same thing. With a sandwich. And a choice. 3 months after the hearing, a statue was erected just outside the West Ridge Veterans Clinic. Life-size, bronze, and powerful, it depicted a young woman kneeling, handing a sandwich to a man on the ground. Not out of pity, but out of shared humanity. At the base, 4 words were engraved. Compassion is never policy. The unveiling drew hundreds. Marines in dress blues. Nurses. City officials. Veterans of every age. And Sergeant Mitchell Rowe, now 3 months clean, walking with pride. As the cloth was pulled back, the crowd went silent. Anna stood beside Ramirez, who leaned in and whispered, "Still think it was just lunch?" She laughed, wiping her eyes. It was never just lunch. The story faded from the headlines, but never from the hearts of those who lived it. Veterans still talk about the day the line of Marines stood, not for war, not for orders, but for kindness. And sometimes, if you walk past the statue on a quiet morning, you'll see someone leave a sandwich at its base. Carefully wrapped. Still warm. Just in case.